Hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Aftermath Hours, the weekly podcast of Aftermath.site, a worker owned, reader supported website about video games, the internet, and everything that comes after. Aftermath is, for the moment, fully reader supported, so if you like what you hear, you can subscribe at just Aftermath.site. Now, we got a new website, and so the slash products part of that URL is gone. You just go there, it's easy. Um, if you don't have much money right now, which many of you I'm sure don't, given the economy, we'd really appreciate it if you could review the show on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen to podcasts. Today we are talking about Mr. Beast's very bad-looking theme park in Saudi Arabia, and also the encroachment of online surveillance in things like Roblox and other parts of the internet via age verification. I'm Nathan Grayson, and today I'm joined by Luke Plunkett
Good afternoon, gamers.
and one of our special guests who's here already, Steven. Actually, wait, I'm not sure if I've ever learned how to pronounce your last name. How do you say it?
Asarch.
Asarch.
Sorry.
Okay.
I've only known you for a decade. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, who says people's last names out loud? That's not a thing.
Absolutely.
And then we'll be joined in a little bit by Kat Tenbarge, who is on her way, and will also be here. But anyway, yeah. So wanted to have both of them on because the two of you just launched or I guess soft launched a new show, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we just launched a new podcast, live stream show, Thingamadoozer, on YouTube. Right now we're going by Fantasyland. It's a show talking about theme parks, digital culture, and the intersection of the two. Basically, we've both been digital culture writers for the past decade. I was at Newsweek, Business Insider, wrote for Rolling Stone, MSNBC. And if the industry has taught me one thing, it's that traditional journalistic outlets are not the future. We kind of have to be online and we have to be our own brands to kind of grow and, thrive. So this podcast is kind of a way for us to break out of the mold that the internet writing sphere has kind of put us into and just be, have a little more fun with it. And our first episode, which we did this week earlier, was about Beastland. Mr. Beast's incredibly weird, over the top, unnecessary theme park.
Yeah. It certainly seems because, like, for those who don't know, Mr. Beast just launched a theme park, Saudi Arabia of all places. That country that everyone is totally fine with and that has no problems whatsoever. Um, and yeah, it really does seem like an effort that's just sort of got thrown together at kind of, if not the last second, at least like from parts they had laying around. Um, can you go into sort of what has come out of the theme park thus far in terms of both, influencers going there and clearly not probably getting paid to be there versus like the actual reality of the thing? Because it seems like, the influencers are going there like, oh, it's so cool. Wow, this is crazy. And then if you actually watch the videos, you're like, is it?
Yeah, Beastland is in Riyadh right now, and it's only open for 45 days. It's basically a pop up theme park, which is just incredibly odd of itself. It's a part of Riyadh Season, which is it's the Saudi government is created this sort of initiative to try and make Western audiences and tourists in general want to go to Riyadh and want to go to Saudi Arabia. And Mr. Beast Beastland is like one of their main attractions. If you look at the marketing, there's just like Jimmy slap dab in the middle of a bunch of boxers and soccer players. The actual theme park itself is built of a bunch of roller coasters and rides that they just sort of had lying around, from other Saudi Arabian pop-up theme parks, because I guess that's a thing. Um, and you can also, buy Dunkin' and buy Coca-Cola and go to the Lego store. And they worked with this British company that's been working in Riyadh for at least the past 6 years to make Mr. Beast experiences. Now, for anyone who's really watched Mr. Beast, even the most diehards, I think it can be hard to figure out what exactly Mr. Beast's brand is.
Right.
Uh, it's just giving away money and challenges. That's it. There's no real like glue to kind of tie it all together. So the
Right. And it's
games
not
are
like
like,
he's this like massively charismatic person. Like that's always been
no,
the interesting thing to me about Mr. Beast is that he's amassed, this incredibly large following, but not through like the magnetism of his personality. Like other influencers, that's generally, as you're saying, the glue. And they have a specific brand behind that. With Mr. Beast, it's more like the stunts at the heart of his videos, and again, the massive amounts of money that he has historically given away.
it's in spite of his personality, his success.
Wait, you mean you don't
Because
love his beautiful smile?
his AI teeth that he has in every single video, if you notice, Jimmy's teeth will just like magically change shape and the position on his lip throughout all of his videos.
Wait, that's
Like,
crazy.
oh yeah, it's so obvious whenever I'm watching for work. I I just try to see where his teeth are these days. If you go back to like, you know,
Oh,
hi cat.
okay, I think we got, yeah. Okay, we got Cat. Cat is in. Hi, Cat.
My mic's over here. Hey!
All right. So, for those who may not know, this is Kat Tenbarge. She is a journalist and reporter, um, formerly of NBC and now of Spitfire. Is that the name of your? Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, one of the best in the business when it comes to covering internet culture, as is Steven.
Aw.
Yeah. So it's kind of a dream lineup for me on the show. It's pretty sick.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Of course. Any
So we're just
opportunity to
talking about
talk about
Mr.
the
Beast and
beast.
his weird lack of a real brand because he's kind of just a unnerving looking guy who, puts people through a gauntlet of challenges and loves Squid Game.
Yes, I thought it was pretty telling that like his visual aesthetic is entirely cribbed from Squid Game. Like that's the best that he can come up with.
Yeah. But anyway, Stephen, yeah, you were talking about that whole element of it and then how the theme park sort of fits into his weird
Yep.
milieu.
His weird sort of vibe where, there are giant sculptures of the animated characters because now Mr. Beast has an animated show. Because he's always wanted to make an anime, but he didn't have a budget. So instead, he paid an Australian studio to make 3-minute chunks of a video to sell action figure toys. And those action figure toys are basically giant versions of them right in front of the park. Uh, and as you go through the park, you go to Beast Arena, that they try to incorporate Mr. Beast style challenges, but again, what are those? So they have one that's like you get lifted up in a crane to giant heights, and they drop you to the ground in a bungee cord, and that's Mr. Beast related for some reason. Uh, and then there's another one where you climb stairs and you press a bunch of buttons. Um, Genuinely don't think I ever saw that in a Mr. Beast video, but it's a challenge. It seems like it's a way to just kind of like give kids something to do and influencers an opportunity to record, but not on cameras because cameras are banned from the theme park.
Oh, I didn't know that part. So wait, because
Yeah,
you had some influencers like going in there, clearly filming parts of the theme park. So did they get permission or were they breaking the rules or like what's going on there?
I think the ones that were invited, I'm still not 100% sure who was invited. I know that there was this like scooter influencer on TikTok who tried to teach Jimmy how to do a scooter trick. He was invited. But there are a lot of like British expats who were filming vlogs over there, and I'm pretty sure all of them were filmed on iPhones or their own cell phones because they weren't allowed to bring in cameras, which again just feels like antithetical to the Mr. Beast brand.
Hmm.
The whole point is like he just created a clipping company so that people can take his videos and post them to other sites and then they can get paid for posting his videos. So it felt a little weird to me that you weren't allowed to bring in cameras, but this was maybe the Saudis didn't like the idea of just having a free and open communication. Shocker, I know. But maybe that's the Beastland aesthetic.
My theory is that they didn't want high quality footage of what the attractions actually looked like. Like if it's any worse than what an iPhone can show you, they don't want it to be out there.
Kat, I have a real
Yeah.
quick question. I'm really sorry to interrupt. Do you have a local recording going?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
I
just
have
confirming. Okay,
my
awesome.
voice.
Yeah, I gave
Great.
her a heads up beforehand.
Great.
Perfect.
But anyway, yeah, that part's especially funny because I think an observation that y'all made during your show the other night is that, first and foremost, this thing is marketing, right? Like, it's not really meant to be a major attraction. It's only going to be even like available for a limited time. So it's not like it's going to be able to recoup all of its costs. It's like, no, this is almost certainly a means of getting attention, spotlighting the MrBeast brand in some other way. Once again, like probably sports washing or the YouTuber equivalent of it, all of these things. So to then also be like, but you can't like bring in cameras, you can't like adequately record it. It just feels like it's at odds with itself.
Yeah, I saw
It's not
Terry.
about the theme park though. Like it's about the gesture. They don't want to
Mm.
sell like they're not trying to show that it is a genuinely thrilling, like world-class theme park experience. The point of it is just that they have like it's the same as any other of the Saudi sports washing stuff like you just mentioned. It's not about the quality of the product. It's just about the gesture that they're making by saying we've paid this global superstar this much money to do this thing here and put all your eyes on this and know where it is, and like the actual attractions and the rides and stuff are irrelevant to that. So yeah, it's not surprising at all that they don't want people to see that, because the only thing they do want them to see is the poster. They want people to know MrBeast has a theme park in Riyadh. That's it. That's all they want or need people to know, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think that for MrBeast, like, it is such a benevolent image to be like, he's the Willy Wonka of this generation, or like, he's the Walt Disney of this generation. And he's obviously neither of those things. Willy Wonka is fictional, and
So is
MrBeast
Walt.
is. Yeah, Walt Disney is also fictional. But like, it just is so at odds with who he actually is. And I feel like at a certain point, it doesn't matter because his kid audience is just going to hear he had an amazing theme park in a country that you were never going to go to, anyways. So just the impression of like he's building awesome things is good enough.
Mhm.
Yeah, Jimmy's entire modern personality as we know it today is carefully curated and artificial. The Jimmy Donaldson that, grew up on the internet posting videos, got viral by posting clips that young kids made and bullying them for the bad videos they made. That's how MrBeast pulled in his first 500,000 subs. It wasn't until he posted a video donating $10,000 to a homeless person where he was like, oh, why would I do this mean content where I'm telling kids to drink bleach when I could do something so much more monetizable, which is charity content? And that's when we see the swap to the MrBeast that we know today, the Willy Wonka Walt of it all, which isn't really built in reality or anything that makes sense because it's all a fantasy. It's meant to get kids to buy chocolate bars, chocolate milk, and action figures.
Mhm. Well, yeah, I mean, a comparison that I think y'all drew the other night that might be closer to reality is like Elon Musk and the fact that MrBeast, seemingly wants to become Elon Musk.
100%.
Jimmy dreams of Elon. Like there's still he's currently in a lawsuit right now with the people who did Beast Burger. And all of these documents have basically come out in discovery. And he's speaking with the venture capitalists who are funding his company. And at one point, one of them has to shoot down this Elon Musk idea that he had, that Jimmy wanted to do, because it was like at the peak of Elon's controversy chainsaw scandal. He just loves Elon. He loves Steve Jobs. He has a giant portrait in his office of Steve Jobs, I believe.
Mhm.
And he idolizes these tech icons of a generation. He wants to be one of those. He doesn't want to be a YouTuber. He wants to sit at the big boys table. And the only way to do that is to get Saudi Arabian money.
I feel
Well,
like
yeah.
Mr. Beastland, like Beastland is to Mr. Beast what the Tesla diner is to Elon. Like it's not actually a good product. And it is just like a sad shell of what it's supposed to represent.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I mean, because it does seem like at this point, MrBeast is sort of in this weird kind of no man's land where, again, as you're saying, he doesn't really purely want to be a YouTuber anymore. He wants to be kind of like a larger brand that has all of these attendant parts to it. And like a theme park is one of them, but as you were saying earlier, so we're action figures. So is this like faux anime series. So are the like snacks. So is chocolate, like all of this stuff. But I mean, like, what is the end goal there, do you think? Is it just to, engage in infinite growth and expand the empire until it encompasses everything? Or like, is there a particular North Star that he has guiding him here?
I don't think there's any limit to what MrBeast wants to do. Like, he spent his entire teenage years with the singular goal of being the largest YouTuber on the platform. He did that like half a decade ago. So from there, he's wants to be the biggest thing to ever exist. Like, he's floated the idea of running for president, which is horrifying. But that's kind of what he wants. He wants his brand to be synonymous, like a Disney, like any sort of other thing in traditional media. He doesn't want to ever stop. I just picture that like Courage the Cowardly Dog episode with the carrot. It was just grow, expand, explode. That's the only goal, is to just get as big as you possibly can until you burst in the industry.
Mhm. Yeah. And so, like, I mean, should he continue, like, because the other part of this, I think, that is interesting to watch is that a little while ago, people were talking about kind of a backlash to the style of content that he does on YouTube. That for a while, like his house style took over YouTube. You could watch videos and see like, oh yeah, they're employing like MrBeast, like 90 seconds of content followed by like something changing up, followed by like another change up, because like that holds people's attention and kind of replicates like short form video and the way that it unfolds. But that in general, it seems like people were getting tired of, I did 100,000 of this, I gave X number of money to that. Does it still feel that way? Does it still seem like people are sort of over his whole thing, at least where YouTube is concerned? Or is he still like growing exponentially just because after a certain point, if you get big enough, you just kind of keep growing?
I think there are a few different factors in it. One is YouTube heavily promotes his content.
Hmm.
YouTube works directly with Jimmy to, share his stuff to as many people as possible. And the other, his audience really isn't American people anymore. He's expanded to an international audience. A few years back, he was one of the first people to do like voice over dubs for every one of his videos. Like, the voice of Spider-Man in Brazil voices Jimmy Donaldson in his videos, or the voice of, I believe it's Naruto in Japan, does the voice of Jimmy there.
That's
So
kind of
he's
wild.
yeah, he's understood that like his audience is not just the singular United States as it was anymore. Like when he announced Beastland, someone asked, "Why are you doing it in Riyadh? That feels weird." And he's like, "Because my audience is international, and it's easy for a lot of them to go to Riyadh." Which is partially true, but he did the deal because he did a deal with the Saudis a few months back, and one of them was to make a theme park. The
Right.
goal is to just I think MrBeast, as we've watched, covering digital culture over these years, MrBeast's influence over content in general has sort of seeped its way across all platforms. Every YouTube thumbnail looks the same. Everyone starts with a guy yelling, "Go, yeah!" You gotta really push the vlog voice to the max. And that's because Jimmy had cracked the algorithm. But as we've learned trying to again post on these platforms, the algorithm is a constantly shifting beast that never stays stagnant for too long. And I think MrBeast's the videos themselves are basically just advertising for his content. In the same way that Beastland is just an advertising, the MrBeast videos are just advertising. They do collaborations with Slack and Lowe's. The goal is to just make enough money so that it pays for the videos. There was a Bloomberg article not too long ago that leaked that 90% of the money MrBeast earns from his videos, he then reinvests back into the videos.
Right.
That's
Right.
why he's not making money right now, because the goal isn't to make money, and he's already destroyed YouTube as we know it today. So now his goal is to destroy every other thing we hold dear and love.
It's weird to me to think that like YouTube is in a way like they have this incestuous relationship with him. Like they want the views that his content brings. So despite the personal controversies that he might start, like YouTube as a company is still willing to like relentlessly promote him, relentlessly invest in him. And it's interesting to me because the last singular person I can remember YouTube having that kind of relationship with was Shane Dawson.
Hmm.
Before like before the fall of Shane Dawson, like the CEO of YouTube would go to his house and hang out with him. And that was like not really a relationship that it seemed like YouTube had with a lot of people. But I feel like with Mr. Beast, we're almost in a post controversy era because it's like previously, maybe in a different decade, you would think that major multinational corporations would get scared by the types of things that Mr. Beast has credibly been accused of doing. But now it's like they're actually less scared of working with him, even when like the general public consensus around him is now that he's kind of a bad guy.
Hmm. Yeah. Why do you think that is? Like, what kind of made them go from being, and like I think this is true of brands in general, being very squeamish around these creators, being like very brand safe in their approach, to being like, oh, actually, whatever, or like now that maybe people's opinions have soured, like, okay, this is actually safer for us somehow.
That's kind of what I thought. Like when we were talking about Mr. Beast's controversies, it's like in a certain sense, now that he's had them, they know that it doesn't really matter anymore. Like, of course, there are still worse things he could do. I think there are things that he could do that would like break down the empire. But I do think that these companies and these brands have realized over the past like 5 years in particular that the longevity of the influencer does not depend on how bad the controversy gets. Like, I imagine that the lesson from Logan Paul, for example, was like, oh, yeah, at a certain point after the Suicide Forest video, it seemed like Logan would never make money again. But the reality is that he makes exponentially more money now than he did
Oh yeah.
before, during, or after that controversy. So it's like, in a weird way, I think that the brands almost push the creators more than the audience even pushes the creator.
Hmm.
Cancellation in general, when it comes to these style of influencers, is now a myth. I don't think an influencer outside of an extreme grooming or sexual assault scandal can't bump back from any sort of controversy at this point. You know,
Hmm.
Trisha Paytas is doing better than she's ever done before. Jeffree Star is still thriving.
Dr.
Um,
Mhm.
Disrespect still exists.
Guy Beam is just, he's doing photo shoots and thriving with his weird audience
Yep.
because you can't be really canceled anymore because you find all it takes is a weird niche audience that can fund your content for a really long time. You don't really need to go mainstream. You know, the Guy Beam, I'm not calling him the Doc. I refuse. Uh like, you know, is never going to hit that same level that he hit in the you know, pre-2020 TwitchCon era. He's now sort of cemented himself as an anti-cancel culture warrior. And it is like, and the audience that that's fallen for it is willing to give him enough that he can survive. You know, influencers don't need to be for everyone anymore. They can just sort of find their micro niche and thrive in a way that really didn't work just 5 years ago. I think when it comes to like Mr. Beast, his scandals only reached the level that they did because he couldn't talk, because he at least so he claims, there was a person, there was a law firm looking into his company. Um I believe that from talking to people inside. But in general, these influencers, they can't be canceled. There's no such thing. Brands are full of, you know, older folks who just sort of see a big name and think, oh, I can throw my thing behind. Like, I don't think Jack Link's beef jerky, which is now doing a Mr. Beast collab, really cared too much about the Ava controversy from last year when they signed that 7 to 8 figure deal to slap his name on a bunch of meat sticks. Uh, Cancellation is a myth.
Yeah. Just to give people like kind of an idea of what we're talking about here, Steven, especially as you've been like kind of the chronicler of Mr. Beast's many scandals. What are some of the things he's done? What are the most egregious?
Sure. I have been, a little bit about me. I've been reporting on MrBeast since at least 2018, where I interviewed him about a real life battle royale he decided to do. Um, and I would say up until 2024, MrBeast was uncancelable. Criticism was not even allowed of MrBeast because he did philanthropy. He helped people, he helped cure blindness single handedly, according to his thumbnail. But sometime in the summer of 2024, it came out that Ava Chris Tyson, who was his second in command and his closest friend, had been talking inappropriately with minors on a Discord and had allegedly sexually assaulted, um, their assistant, while, they were working at the time. This led to a series of other controversies coming out. A YouTuber named Dogpack made a whole bunch of videos. Um, Other YouTubers came out claiming they were like, tortured trying to film a video. And all these controversies just sort of like, you know, grew on top of each other, um, to, it reached a point when the Beast games came out in the first season. I reported that the crew members on the Beast games were treated very poorly. They were underfed, they were overworked. One crew member I spoke with, was hit by a 200-pound piece of wood that fell on his neck, causing him
Jeez.
to fall backwards, hit his head, blood shooting out of his mouth. He is still, um, recovering. His left side doesn't work very well. And when he was in the hospital, a MrBeast executive offered him $1,000 in Uber Eats and DoorDash gift cards as a way to kind of make sure it was better. And in general, all those controversies didn't really mean much. He was sort of just able to continue posting content, wave it all away with a, law firm investigation into the company, which found that, yeah, there was some bad stuff at MrBeast, but overall they did their best. You know, you got to remember that MrBeast for a while was just a bunch of teenagers running around and doing wild stuff. So now they're a major corporation that has just hired a bunch of executives from Shopify and NBC to try and change their image. And it's clearly working because now MrBeast is, I would say if Miss Rachel is for the really young kids, MrBeast is for the young kids. That's kind of like how the content goes. And then they go into like Minecraft, Roblox content,
Mhm.
from there. So MrBeast scandals are just like now unimportant when really looking at the man because they didn't really stick,
Mhm.
Oh, that's so bleak.
right? This is our future.
It's so bleak.
Yeah, it's our future. It's our present, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so with all of that in mind, another angle on this that's interesting to me and that I think ties into y'all's show is the fact that again, this is a theme park, and that your show is going to be about examining theme parks. One thing that popped up when I was like searching this stuff and doing research is that right now Netflix is also about to open or is opening a theme park as well. They're opening one in they've opened one in Philadelphia.
Mhm.
Um, why are these digital properties expanding into theme parks of all things? Why is that the way to go?
Well, one thing for sure is that a lot of people do want like experiential things that they can do offline.
Mhm.
So, a lot of these brands have figured out that you can do a kind of temporary activation style, like quote unquote theme park. And it
Mhm.
is not, you are not getting like the construction quality of a Disney theme park. You are not getting like something that is built to last. I think a
Mhm.
lot of these places, like the Netflix ones, speak to this. There are places in Vegas that have opened that in recently that remind me of this. And it's like you're paying, it's an overpriced thing to go and do for a day. And the way that
Mhm.
they get you in the door is it's a recognizable brand. Like, oh, these are Netflix shows that I watch and I can go do something related to those shows while I'm there. But I think that the actual, like, one of the many downsides of this is that they're not developing like quality themed entertainment. They are just like IP maxing and getting you to spend like $60 to go to a place where the main attraction is you can spend more money. You can buy merch, you can buy like really overpriced food, and like maybe there's a ride or a show or a scavenger hunt or like an escape room component to this. But instead of just like having theme parks and having these types of activities like in locations that are built to last, we're in this really weird like temporal space, I think, with like in-person entertainment.
Mhm.
There are no more third spaces or second spaces. We have to find ways to congregate in the real world, and companies have realized IPs are the way to do that. People only care if you slap, Moana on a live action film. It's no longer Moana anymore. It's a new thing. It's all about just basically member this, and these, activation style things. Like Kat and I went to this Squid Game activation thingamadoozer that they have near Penn Station, where they had us like do the run and make sure that the girl robot spins around and doesn't catch you, but it wasn't working. So everyone just survived. Uh, that's all just like how these things exist these days, because it's all just advertising. You
Mhm.
know, Netflix wants people to go to Netflix, so they'll throw K-pop Demon Hunters on, a mall and wherever, and then they'll get a whole bunch of people who know their brand. It's the whole goal is to just find different ways to make money and spend it without people realizing that they're spending money on an ad.
Mhm. To really define our terms, because I think there are some people in our audience who are maybe not as online as others or not as tied to like the world of advertising as others. What is an activation?
You do it, Kat.
Well, okay, so an activation is like a brand activation. So I'm sure that a marketing professional would be like, "Kat, you've got it all wrong." But what I think of is it's like a pop-up. So it's like for the Squid Game thing, for example, the activation is that people are like supposedly kind of living the show, like they're getting to experience what's happening in this universe, which is of course so dark and terrible. And that was a big thought that I had as we were doing the Squid Game thing, was I was like, the show is a dystopian message about capitalism and how you will literally, like, it's like a metaphor.
Mhm.
But what they're doing with this like activation is they're like just they're reinforcing the message of what the show was supposed to be advising against. They're
Against,
doing
right,
like the
right.
most capitalist thing possible. And so I think an activation, which like again, if there's a marketing professional and they're like, you're completely wrong, I'm so sorry. But I'm pretty sure it's just like a pop-up to symbolize whatever the brand represents in a way that you can sell it to people.
Mhm. But yeah, and that also, it's funny because that ties back to MrBeast too, who's also been obsessed with like recreating Squid Game in particular. Squid Game feels like such an interesting, or not even interesting, such a telling kind of flashpoint here, and that repeatedly via both these in-person pop-ups and MrBeast's take on it and the Netflix game show version of it, everyone's like taking away the wrong message, or rather, they probably got the message just fine. They're like, but there's a money making opportunity in recreating these games that were supposed to be nightmarish and horrific as depicted by the actual show and its particular themes. Um, yeah, it's just like, again, it's very dystopian. It's very bleak.
It's so dystopian, and like the Squid Games of it all is such a perfect example, because it's like when I recall vividly watching the first episode of Squid Games when it came out on Netflix, and it was so horrifying. I remember watching it and just being like, that was genuinely just one of the most disturbing episodes of TV that I've seen in a while. They were literally depicting a mass shooting. That's like what the scene with the robot who turns around is. And then like a week later, I went to an activation a Disney Pixar like pop-up mini golf thing in New York, and there were these kids running around and they were doing the Squid game. They were acting it out. And I remember seeing that and being like, that show's not for kids, but I guess the kids are watching it. And this was like 5 years ago. So now fast forward, and it's such a recognizable brand for kids, to the point that MrBeast has created this whole like separate empire built around the iconography of Squid Games. And we're so far removed from the fact that like this was supposed to reflect the like horror in our day-to-day existence.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and in particular was supposed to be, again, a critique of capitalism. And then capitalism took it and ran it through the ringer and basically extracted all of the substance from it like it was twisting a fucking toothpaste tube. And, now here we are with this thing that has been so thoroughly flattened as to be divorced from its original message and to be actually opposite to it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, which is just wild to think about. But it happened so fast. That's the other part, as you say, like 5 years later. But that element of it had already like basically fully unfolded after like, I don't know, 6 months.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean the Halloween costumes that year were like all like I'm number 4, 5, 6 in Squid Game.
right, right.
I'm excited to
Well,
be the one that doesn't die.
Literally.
um, but yeah, going back to kind of these like pop-ups that they're doing, you were saying that they're advertising, which I think is very accurate. I mean, I'm not sure what else they could be. But one thing that I wonder about that is like, do you feel like these things, especially the ones you've been to, are set up so that, they can basically be fed back into social media? So you can go there, like do some photo ops, take some videos, and then those go into social media and kind of like basically just feed the machine even further.
100%. And I think if you look at what these experiences are today compared to, like, if you take Disneyland as an example, Disneyland opened in 1955. So, of course, this was like well before social media or people carrying around cameras and documenting like things hyper realistically. And so, in the beginning of theme park history, these were meant to be built physical environments that you experienced because you were there. And they were also built to last. They were built to last for generations to come so that you could one day bring your kids to the park and then you have a generational attachment to it. The style of like quote unquote theme park entertainment that we have today is the polar opposite of all of that, in that it's literally not built to last. It's built to last for as long as a trend cycle can sustain it and make it profitable. And then once it's no longer profitable, they can tear this down and they can put something else there. And the social media component of this is huge because versus being like a built environment that it has durability that you can play with, that you can explore like for years to come, it's essentially just like everything is a backdrop. And this really struck me when we went to the Squid Games thing too, because it from a distance it looked really good. Like it looked
Mhm.
deceptively impressive, I think, if you were taking like a smartphone video. But the closer you get to everything and as you work your way through this maze, the more like the facade becomes clear. And the more you can actually like kind of pick up on like the engineering of it all. Like these are not real walls. They're it's an image that is supposed to look textured like a wall, but it's actually like a piece of fabric that they'll be able to take down very easily at a certain point.
Mhm.
Yeah, the facade of it all is all just kind of built to advertising. We've both we've been doing esports coverage for a very long time, and since the dawn of my first League of Legends event, watching thousands of people screaming at Madison Square Garden, in my head I'm just like, this is advertising for League of Legends.
Right,
That
right.
is the purpose of esports. It's
Yeah.
ultimately just an activation on a grander scale that they're trying to you know make look fancier than what it actually
Oh
is.
yeah, a telling part of that is for Riot in particular. A lot of their esports stuff has always come out of their marketing budget, not
Yep.
like other parts of their budget. It's marketing. They know
Yeah.
it.
They've always been aware, and that's kind of why esports is really suffering these days, and is also kind of being kept on life support by the Saudis.
Mhm.
Uh,
I mean,
you
not
know,
just kind of.
yeah,
That's the whole game now. Um,
exactly.
yeah, but no, it also this goes back to Beastland too. I remember there was that video that y'all showed on your podcast where they were just like erecting these like old, again, previously out of use like theme park rides that they just had in Saudi Arabia. And it's like from a distance, yeah, having all these rides around probably makes it look more impressive. But the reality of it is, yeah, it's just like, these janky rides that they didn't have anything else to do with. So they're like, let's just put them over here and make it seem bigger and more spectacle driven, I guess.
Yeah,
It's
if
also
you
like, or you go, Steven.
I was just say, if you look at the drone footage of Beastland, it looks so epic and magnificent because when you look at it from afar, you're like, "Oh my god, this thing is so big." And then you look at it in real time, not during the day because it starts at 4 p.m. It looks more like the schlock fest that it kind of, feels to
Mhm.
to those of us on the other side of the world.
A hundred
Yeah.
percent. And it's like with the types of rides that they were bringing in, like the county fair style rides, the thing about that really is striking to me is that there's nothing inherently wrong with like a county fair style entertainment venue. The reason why like these things exist is because not everyone can afford to travel to Anaheim, California, or Orlando, Florida, or wherever like the big, really impressive theme parks are. These things like serve a purpose, even activations and like those types of entertainment, they serve a purpose. I think the problem is they're being marketed now as like comparable, and they're charging you what you would be
Mhm.
paying for like a much better thing that's built to last. And so the IP becomes the gimmick that's able to inflate the price. And it just kind of like it's a little bit soul crushing when you have people saying like Mr. Beast has built the greatest thing of all time. And it's like it's not. And well, I don't know, like we should not have to pretend that it is. You have all these other influencers like glazing him and being like, this is so amazing. And it's like they would bring this to your elementary school and set it up in the parking lot.
They will
Right.
not let an elementary school kid bungee cord from a crane. At least my school.
They they would not, but they would probably do it at like a backwoods summer camp.
Right.
That's what the zip line thing reminded me of. Was I was like, I'm pretty sure we did this at like the local rec summer camp, like a zip line between two trees.
But I mean, they are also like, I think these influencers are grading on a curve too, of like what it's impressive for an influencer to do versus what it would be impressive for, a company or like Disney or whatever to do, which these are totally different scales of things. And so, of course,
Mhm.
another influencer looking at what Mr. Beast has accomplished is going to say, that's crazy. I can never imagine myself doing that. It's like, yeah, because you're in fundamentally different businesses. You just don't know that yet. Mr. Beast
Yes.
is, as you guys were saying earlier, no longer just an influencer. He is a
Yeah.
brand, a conglomerate, hiring, employees from major media conglomerates and things like that. Um, yeah, so it's totally different.
Yeah.
Also, these influencers desperately want to be in Mr. Beast content.
Mhm.
Their opportunity to earn $10,000 in a briefcase or earn a Tesla is more than enough to glaze him and get the opportunity. You get a video with Mr. Beast one on one, that is the highest chance you have of going viral. And ultimately, that's how you make money. So, being as nice to him and supporting his content and saying that his peanut butter cups are the best peanut butter cups. Isn't it funny that he made a bar called D's Nuts? Uh, which he had to stop doing because he got sued by a woman named D, who made her own chocolate bar called D's Nuts. Uh, Simpler times. But these influencers are desperate, and I think theme parks in general, I think their quality has gone down so far over the years. You know, Screens have replaced animatronics, so that the
Mhm.
magic that existed at these theme parks is a lot less stupendous than it once was. So these other activations are starting to look better in comparison because the actual main attractions are looking wonkier.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes, that's such a good point because it's like at the same time that activations are like becoming standard and people are paying more for them, the traditional theme parks, your Disneys and your Universals, are also learning from this. And what they're learning is that they can charge people significantly more while offering them significantly less. If you look at like the most recent rides that have opened in some of these theme parks, Universal opened the most offensive like quote unquote ride that I've ever personally seen. This was like maybe in the last 2 years they opened this Minions ride in air quotes because I think to be a ride you have to have a vehicle. You must sit down in like something. And
Mhm.
so because that's in the name, you're riding something. This was a moving sidewalk. In front of a screen, and it was a shooter game, so they like gave you a gun, but I my conspiracy is that like most of these don't actually work and that they know that it doesn't have to work because it's like brain rot. They're just putting all of these images in front of you. And so
Mhm.
after I rode that quote unquote ride at Universal, I was like, this is such a bad trend where like they're not even trying anymore. They've learned that they no longer have to try and they can still charge you significantly more money for it.
Mhm. Well, yeah, and so I keep coming back to this thought as well of like all of this, the sort of flimsiness of this, and the temporary like nature of a lot of these things that are being erected and called theme parks. Also, like, it feels like it fits with social media in general, the disposability of content, and therefore, like, we're starting to then also say, okay, well then, why not have these real world spaces, these places that we can exist in physically, that are also fundamentally disposable and that are flimsy in this way where, like, yeah, if you spent a long time putting them under the like magnifying glass or whatever, you notice that, but we won't give you that time. So instead, like, it just, it's like a river of content. You just scroll to the next thing.
Yep. Yeah.
Everything's designed just to go viral, and virality is fleeting. No one has their last longer than 15 minutes of fame unless they find another way to go viral. And all of these little activations and moments, Wicked taking a Amazon delivery truck and handing boxes to influencers so they get a Funko Pop. That's just like the norm, and it will continue as because that's what the algorithms tell them people want. And we're no longer, Walt's vision is gone. People aren't just making things because they want to make them. Now it's all with money in mind.
It also feels like it is downstream of AI culture. And I think Beastland in particular, I was like, this is the AI like equivalent of a theme park because it is so derivative of things that have come before. Not only like definitionally like what a theme park is and like drawing so heavily from the aesthetic of Squid Games versus coming up with something original of your own. But it's also like reading through the list of rides and attractions, there's no cohesiveness. Like building a theme park is an art form, and that has been completely abandoned here. Instead, what you're getting feels like you asked ChatGPT, like, hey, come up with 12 rides and 12 like games or challenges for my theme park, and then they just built them.
Mhm. Yeah. And so I guess all of that leads to kind of a final question on this topic anyway, which is that maybe this backdrop, given all of this, and I guess almost how, like, again, bleak it seems to be. Like, why is now the time to do a podcast about theme parks?
Okay, well, my sort of thesis behind like doing the podcast about theme parks now is I'm like, we've reached a pivotal moment in theme park culture where for like the past 2 decades, longer than people think, like since frankly the dawn of the internet, there has been like an online fan culture around theme parks built on like sharing knowledge with each other on the best strategies to go to Disney, like what food can I expect if I go to this festival at this time? And what that has morphed into is like a theme park influencer culture that is basically just like a million mini advertisers who aren't being paid by the company directly but work on its behalf. You had that culture that really emerged in like the latter half of the 2010s and into the 2020s. And now I think we're at a real breaking point where those people are starting to engage in backlash against the corporations, and average everyday people can no longer afford to do this stuff. So the theme parks are reaching like a shrinking audience. And there's almost like this is kind of in the middle of like a backlash culture that's sort of emerging against the status quo up until this point.
Mhm.
I 100% on everything Kat said. But for me, theme parks have always been an escape. They're a place where the world isn't the world that we know of, and we can kind of pretend and make believe for a while. I don't believe that anymore. I think the way that smartphones and social media and influencers in general have sort of integrated themselves into theme park culture, there really is no form of escapism. You are kind of stuck doing Genie Plus and making sure your tickets are on at the right time so you can get on this ride. It's all just, as I love to say, digital culture is just culture. And everything on the internet just kind of bleeds into the real world. And I think with theme parks and theme park culture in general, it's so unique, but not. It's very representative of the internet as it is today because it's about how much, you can get as much engagement as possible as a theme park. How do you make more money? Genie Plus. How do you get people to post more and get more people there? Influencers. It's all just about trying to grow it while less and less people can afford to be there, but still create this fantasy that these theme parks are, Walt's magic. But the magic died long ago and now it's in your smartphone.
I mean, again, it's dystopian, but yeah, sounds accurate, unfortunately. Okay, so now we're going to transition inelegantly to another topic. Usually I have a better way of doing this, but I remembered that earlier I did not mention that currently Aftermath is having a sale. $1 for your first month of being subscribed to the site. And so if you are enjoying what you're listening or what you're hearing, then yeah, please consider checking that out. But yeah, so what I wanted to transition over to is I think another thing that the two of you probably at least are somewhat versed in, which is general age verification across various services. Most recently, Roblox announced their kind of initiative on that front this week and how it's going to work. I'm going to run through that really fast. Basically, let's see, as detailed in a blog post, the safety initiative is bundled into two processes: a voluntary facial age estimation system and ID checks. Users can opt out of doing either, but basic features like basic text chat won't be usable until a player submits their information. Once in the system, Roblox will limit how the user can interact with other people based on their age range. Roblox fans will be limited to communication with people within their own age range, which are categorized as under 9, 9 to 12, 13 to 15, 16 to 17, 18 to 20, or 21 plus. Players are able to interact with people outside of their age range only if they use something Roblox calls trusted connections, which requires an existing real-world relationship. Let's see, from there things get a little fuzzy. Roblox says that it will enforce trusted connections via QR codes, but that it is still exploring more ways to ensure fans can continue interacting with people they know and trust. So yeah, I find all of this interesting in the grander scheme of the internet, considering that a lot of places now are leaning into age verification. This obviously seems like a fairly invasive version of that, but off the back of Roblox getting dinged for multiple scandals involving, child predators and things of that nature, it's clear that they're trying to, I guess, basically put their like quote unquote best foot forward and say like, hey, we're going to be leaders in this space. We care a lot about this issue that we didn't seem to care that much about until recently. But what I wanted to talk to y'all about is just the looming specter of kind of that sort of verification expanding across the internet in the way that I think, allows for companies to more effectively surveil us, even as they claim to be doing the quote unquote right thing.
100%. I mean, this is something that I think about all the time. And recently, I went back to my hometown, Cincinnati, Ohio. And in Ohio, you cannot message people on Blue Sky unless you verify your age. And so when I got to Ohio, I knew this was coming. I was prompted to do this, and there's like a third party system that they're using, and they wanted me to scan my face, and I declined, so I was unable to access my DMs for like the week that I was there. But when I started digging into the company, I was just like, as usual, this is a totally shady third party company that's like maybe linked to a bunch of mainstream tech companies that are using it,
Mhm.
but there's just no semblance of like you can trust what this place is going to do with your data. And my feelings on it are, I'm like, I don't want to give them any more information than I have to until it's too late and I simply cannot access the things that I need to use throughout the day to do it. And we
Mhm.
are hurtling toward that path. And I don't think people realize that. I think a lot of adults in particular are going to have a really abrupt realization that just because it's a child safety measure does not mean that it only affects children, that it's going to affect every single person who is on the internet. And yeah, I don't know if you have any initial thoughts about that, Stephen.
Well, I think the age verification, panic of today isn't really going to work that well. Like on Roblox, I saw a post today that kids were trying to teach themselves Morse code so that they could talk. Like if you jump, it's a dot, and if you move to the side, it's a line. As a way to try to communicate with themselves. I think like Roblox is a social media platform in and of itself. It
Mhm.
has a massive amount of culture. I covered for PC Mag the Predator hunting scandal story that kind of led to all of this. Roblox
Yeah, the
banned,
YouTuber who was doing that, who was
yeah,
basically like finding predators, doing like to catch a predator, but in Roblox. Yeah.
yeah. I interviewed him, and I'm not a big fan of predator hunters. Me and Chris Hansen have a long history. I'm not getting into here. Um, but I think with age verification in general, it's a losing battle. It feels like politicians want to solve the problems of kids on the internet talking to people. And to me, the answer is always more moderation. Like when I was younger, I was on Neopets, and my sister was on Gaia Online. and those platforms had heavy amounts of moderation, so that if there were, problems that occurred, which I'm sure there were, they were less problematic. But because Roblox is so large that, its largest, I don't know if this is still true, but its largest game was like Steal a Brain Rot, and it had
Mhm.
like more concurrent players than all of Fortnite at a certain time. Um,
Well, yeah,
so
don't they
there's
have like
no,
don't they have like 80 million players per day or something like that? I saw an 80 million stat recently. I don't remember if it was per day or per month, but I mean,
yeah,
a truly gargantuan number.
there's no way to moderate that with
Yeah,
people without spending a massive amount of money, which Roblox doesn't want to do in general.
no.
They're already taking like the people who are making the games for Roblox are making such a small percentage of what those actual games generate in revenue, and they're not going to spend that money on moderation. They're going to spend it to watch the stock price go up.
Mhm.
So moderation is the answer, not age verification. But these tech companies aren't going to see that because it costs them money.
Yeah. It's also like we've seen this play out already with like efforts to curb sex trafficking online. Like we've seen how Sesta Fosta played out. We've seen how banning sites like Pornhub or making it impossible to access them is already playing out. And what happens is people just gravitate toward less regulated, more unsafe platforms where they can speak freely and just like don't have to deal with all of this stuff. And I think that the unfortunate reality is like we now live in a tech based society and kids are a part of that society. And I feel like this idea that we can keep them safe if we just push them out of internet spaces or restrict their access to those spaces is not true. I understand why people want to believe that. I think it's a very compelling premise. But to the contrary, when I've done reporting around like child safety on the internet and I've spoken to kids, they are, for the most part, like the average kid, I think, who you speak to probably between the ages of like 13 and 18 is aware of the dangers that exist and has a more nuanced, like informed take than a lot of adults would give them credit for. But also, like, this is how they communicate with their friends. This is how they learn about the world. This is how they socialize, how they play. So it's like, it's not, I don't think it's possible or like reasonable or positive to just like yank that away from them. But I think that the solutions are probably a lot harder and would require broader societal efforts to make things safer, not just online for kids, but also in like offline spaces. And people don't want to talk about that either.
Mhm. Well, yeah, Luke, as someone who has kids who are in the Roblox ecosystem, I mean, like,
Hmm.
what does it seem like their impression of all of this is? And, like, do you feel like they have kind of a very nuanced take, at least as relative to what you'd expect of kids?
They have a nuanced take as kids. No, they don't. They think it's bullshit. They
Yeah.
it's a platform they've been using and that they will do anything to keep using because they in many ways, and I'm going to actually, I've got two kids, but I'm going to specifically talk about my 12-year-old son because he spends a lot of time on Roblox. My daughter doesn't, she dabbles in it, but he basically plays Roblox every day. And he plays it because this it's more than a game to him. It's more than a social network. It's a social space. And so he'll get home from school and all of his friends, they'll all log on to Roblox together and they're all in a Discord together and they will just chat all night. And they'll chat on the Discord and sometimes they'll jump in and out of each other's games or they'll just tell each other about what they're playing and they'll share screenshots and videos of what they're playing. And it's just a hangout space after school where they can just sort of be together. And in that way, what he's getting out of it there, it's really cool. And it's something that is like it's a foundational part of his social life as a child in 2025. And so this idea that adults are going to come in and make him take photos of his face on the internet to restrict who he can and can't chat with, like it, he doesn't like they don't comprehend what's going on because to them what they're perceiving is just a pointless attack on something that they just hang out in and that he only talks to other 12-year-olds anyway because Roblox already has settings where you can only talk to your friends and he's only friends with his IRL friends. And so it's this from his perspective, it's this, oh, the adults are coming in and they're going to fuck this up. you know, for reasons that I don't understand. But from the adult's perspective, it's almost like, as a parent, and I hate saying that line, but like it's true. As a parent, I'm concerned. It just feels completely pointless. Like the entire age verification thing just seems completely pointless in a way that it's built up. It's there's always where there are children and where there are children hanging out, there's always a threat that there's going to be some kind of predatory, you know, uh, bad influence element there. That's always existed. It would have been more dangerous 40 years ago for my kids to have gone to church than it is for them to hang out on Roblox, and that was a trusted space, you know. So there's this feeling that predators and that messaging is this thing that all these governments need to start cracking down on and need to start exerting pressure on Roblox to do, when in reality, and those governments, when they're doing that, and obviously I live in Australia, and we are a few weeks away from instituting a large scale social media ban for kids under the age of 16, where kids are going to be essentially, they're going to try and ban kids under the age of 16 from a huge swathe of social media platforms. Roblox wasn't included on that, partly because the suspicion is because they worked with the Australian government on implementing this age verification system very soon. So the system that Nathan just described is actually going live in Australia, New Zealand, and the Netherlands in a week or two, I think, like really soon. Like it's going to be real here. He's going to have to take photos to measure and stuff. But they're reacting to this, and they're sort of, it's the drill tweet. They're turning the dial, sort of gauging the public's opinion on like, oh, do we want to stop sex predators on Roblox? And it's like, I think most parents and most older people just recognize there's a problem with screen time in general, and it's got very little to do with the threat of predators on lurking in their online spaces, and just more to the fact that there's a general feeling that kids are spending too long on platforms that have been built in such a way that the algorithms and incentives within them are doing damage to them. But like you said, Kat, that's a bigger problem. That's a wider problem that I don't think they even can see, let alone are willing to tackle. That the problem with Roblox isn't the threat of a Nazi or a sex predator getting into my kids' DMs. It's a platform of games that incentivize gambling and normalize this idea of like, just as an explainer, the vast majority of Roblox games these days are barely games. They are exercises where kids watch numbers go up and give them false probability things, and so kids basically spend their entire time thinking they've won the lottery because they've unlocked a 1 in 1 billion chance item. And it's normalizing gambling. And the on-ramp from kids playing Roblox when they're 12 to gambling on sports when they're 18 or to 20 to 22, whatever, is polished and ready to go, if it's not already in full operation already. The social media platforms that are feeding them hateful content or dangerous, far-right stuff on YouTube or other platforms, that's the problem. But because those platforms are built on those algorithms, you can't ban YouTube for everybody. You can't ban Roblox for everybody. So there's this half-assed measure where they're trying to say like, oh, we're going to age verify and protect them from sex predators. Like, man, I don't care who's messaging my kid because I already keep control. I already watch that. I already know he's only talking to his friends. I want someone to do something about these platforms shoveling shit into these kids' brains every minute of every day. But like I said, that's a problem that seems to be too big for anyone to want to take on, because the incentives for those platforms, they're making too much money and they're generating too much power from being the sort of center of these digital ecosystems. And so like, it just feels like we all know what the problem is, but no one is willing or able to seem to actually be able to do anything about it.
I feel like Roblox in general is such a money-making machine. And as you mentioned, it is kind of just like a gambling scene where they just have to keep, generating as much revenue as possible. And I feel like they want to stay out of PR scandals as much as possible. I remember the day I did my PC Mag story, and the predator hunting, there was a congressperson that just tried to sue them and launch an investigation into Roblox. This PR guy sounded so tired. He just wanted to go to bed. He didn't want to deal with this anymore, but it just kept coming nonstop over and over and over. Because Roblox, I've always found Roblox kind of to be a difficult platform to cover because there's so much you have to know to write about it. It's a hard place to really break through to understand it. Unless you're kind of like living through it or you have kids who kind of do it, it can be kind of impenetrable to understand how it works. And that's what Roblox has kind of like coasted on for many years. There really, hasn't been too much reporting in Roblox outside of, like Cecilia's done great work at Bloomberg.
Mhm.
But for the most part, it's been hard, and they've just sort of coasted on their gambling aspect. And now this age verification scandal is sort of taking over, and this is their remedy, their band-aid to try and make sure everyone stops yelling them at as much, while keeping the gambling and the amount of Robux money that are just like keep funneling in.
Yeah. But again, it also seems like it is an industry-wide solution to a larger problem too. Like, I mean, again, from the article that I'm looking at, earlier this year, Discord implemented a similar age verification check for some regions, which users proceeded to bypass in silly ways. In places like Australia, as Luke was saying, tech companies like Google will soon be required to age check their users. Apple recently announced its digital ID, which allows users to legally verify their identity through the iPhone's wallet app. States like Illinois are rolling out digital ID initiatives. Um, Companies like Blizzard sometimes ask users to submit ID for various account-related actions like password recovery. And then you also, so like on one hand, everyone seems to be doing that as a means of, putting a band-aid on a bullet wound or whatever. And then you also have the larger concerns around this, which make a lot of sense, even if you just think for 2 seconds. The fact is you are at that point trusting companies with some very like precious data. And if ever there's a leak, which there already has been with Discord, then that can land in the hands of the wrong people. Because yeah, for Discord, it took less than a year for a breach of sensitive user information, which I believe happened like what, last month?
Yeah, and the
Um,
vast majority of those records were from Australian users because of the sign up rate for the upcoming law. So that was like a real taste of, well, if you make a whole country sign up to these problems, nearly all the data in that Roblox leak, in the Discord leak, were from Australian users. And so the same thing's going to happen with every other platform that they're going to make us, or not make us, but make kids sign up. Well, I guess they are going to make us, because I'm going to have to
yeah,
prove that I'm older than 16.
right.
Yep.
And so they're
Which
just
never
going to have
mind the
data
fact
on.
that like the technology is not perfect either. That in some cases, I mean, somebody could, there are many
Well, I
people
mean,
I've
it
met who
was.
are like in their 30s but look like they're 20 something, or in their
Yeah,
20s
but
and
was
look
it
like they're still,
Discord?
yeah,
Was it Discord early in the year where the British kids learned really quickly that I'm pretty sure it was in Britain. They brought in similar laws for this,
Yes.
and they started using pictures from Death Stranding
yeah,
because
it's from Death
you could
Stranding. Yep.
do in the photo mode you could change the facial expressions because a lot of that
Yeah.
software, if you've never had to use one, it makes you do different faces to basically show that you're sitting there. But they just
Yeah, to
used the
cross
photo
match
mode
it.
from Death Stranding, and you could use it from Yakuza as well. Any photo mode that uses facial expressions, you can just use cruddy JPEG screenshots from a video game and get past this like super advanced security measure that's also gatekeeping vast amounts of the most important personal information you can lose, like driver's license information and that kind of
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah. And I think it also just goes back to like, this feels like the ultimate evolution of the kind of like toad and boiling water situation of people becoming more and more okay with just everyone having access to our personal data. Like,
Hmm.
which again goes back to surveillance. The fact that we're just kind of all we've been made to accept that we're just being surveilled constantly. And like so far what has come of that is in some cases more inconvenience, but not much else. However, at the same time, not to get too real with it, but like, the rise of fascism is occurring around us in this country. More and more, the government's starting to look at things like social media and your usage of that when judging, for example, if they want to let you into the country, and also other things. And so it's like, this is the exact wrong time for everyone to be like, yeah, I'll part with even more of my data. I'll let even more of that circulate. I'll let more people have their hands on it. But here we are. And I think it's no coincidence that companies are pushing for that right now, considering those extenuating circumstances.
100%. Have you guys seen the OnlyFans security technology that they're introducing to do background checks?
No.
Okay, so I saw an OnlyFans performer posted a thread about this week, and I think Sam Cole at 404 already did a piece about it. Basically, OnlyFans is going to start making all of its users do background checks with this technology called Checker. And of course, it relies on AI. And of course, it has been sued numerous times because it has falsely accused people of having felony records when they don't. And my personal favorite part is that it has let people who do have records, like felony records, it has given them a clean bill. So it's like it does false negatives and false positives. And I feel like this example, as of right now, it just applies to OnlyFans. But as we've seen historically, the surveillance methods and sort of like the discriminatory technology that doesn't do what it's supposed to do, it adversely affects like sex workers first and foremost because they're
Mhm.
always the guinea pigs, they're always the initial targets. And when I saw this story emerging with OnlyFans, I was like, great, I bet that is like a precursor of what our dystopian hell for everyone is going to look like in years to come. Is like we're going to have this technology that involves AI that is the discriminatory like nature is baked into the algorithm, it's baked into the data set, and it's going to be like you need to pass through this impenetrable wall to be able to access your bank or like text your loved one or get into your account where you have everything stored. And yeah, I just imagine there's going to be a lot of people who slip through the cracks as this stuff starts to like fail catastrophically in the coming years.
Mhm. Not to like dig too deep into it, but I do want to read a headline really fast that is also illuminating where OnlyFans is concerned. This is from last year, and the story is on the Rolling Stone, so reliable. OnlyFans owner pledged 11 million to Israel lobby.
Yes.
Yeah.
Saw that.
So once again, Israel uses a ton of different surveillance apparatuses in their genocide in Gaza. So like, you know, again, not to do the Pepe Sylvia thing from It's Always Sunny, but like it's all connected.
Yeah.
Like all of these things work in tandem to allow for various forms of oppression, both of populaces afar and near.
Fun.
Yeah, I know, right? So keep that in mind next time someone's asking you to verify your entire identity and taking your data. Like they have ulterior motives. They're not just trying to keep kids safe. In fact, again, as you can probably speak to, Kat, in terms of other initiatives online, it's never just about trying to keep kids safe.
Yeah.
As you were saying with like
Yeah.
Sesta and Fosta and stuff like that earlier.
Yeah, I mean Project 2025, which I forgive people for not reading because it was like 900 pages, but Project 2025 lays this all out very explicitly around sort of like how online censorship under the guise of keeping kids safe is intended to like further already marginalized populations. They do not want kids to be getting on social media and running into content from queer people or like other marginalized people who could help those kids like reach any sort of conclusion that conservatives don't want them to reach. And I also like generally, it frustrates me that anti-tech attitudes and like anti-social media attitudes that for the most part I tend to agree with where the sentiment is coming from, but it's evolved into this weird sort of like moderate opinion that's like, yeah, I'm pro kid safety. I think like all of this stuff is good. And it's like I think that people need to wake up to the fact very, very quickly, ideally, that our freedom of expression is under significant threat in like a very, very real way. And it could absolutely be a scenario where you wake up one day and all of these modes of communication and information that you previously relied on are no longer accessible to you.
Right. Like, another example that we haven't brought up yet, but that I think is salient is like the TikTok ban or the attempt at it, which has now led to a sale to a number of interested or parties that are very interested in curtailing, I think, the spread of, left-leaning information, but especially anything pertaining to pro-Palestinian sentiment. Like that ban was first initiated not long after October 7th, not long after people started, using that as a source of information about what Israel was doing in Gaza. Like that's the real reason behind a lot of these things. And, to ignore that is to, again, I think allow for people to come in and strip away your rights and your ability to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's totally ideologically motivated.
Well, with all of that said, I think it's time to transition to our final segment, which is our mailbag. For those who don't know, basically, our mailbag is just where reader or listeners can ask us questions. That is in our Discord. So if you'd like to gain access to that, you can subscribe to our member tier for just $10 per month. And then you get access to the mailbag, but also the entire Discord, which is a great place to hang out and talk to people, normal people even, about video games on the internet. It's one of the last ones. Everyone else has obviously lost their minds, as you can tell by going on any social media platform. Anyway, so I'm going to go with some questions that are a little bit more general first, because some of them are like really game specific, and y'all are obviously here to talk about internet stuff. But one that stood out to me, given that we're all in media, from Ghost, then, what do you all think of the MS Now rebrand?
Hate it. I hate it. I was freelancing for them for a bit, and then they were like, actually, while we're doing MS Now, we're not taking freelancers. So I'm just personally petty about it.
I was having a conversation with a group of people who had all worked for like MSNBC, NBC at some point or another, who were all just like looking at the MSN Now rebrand and grimacing because it is so bad, like bordering on parody, and they have so many great people there. And it is so frightening. And like, I understand why they did it. I understand why, obviously, they have to change the name because of the breakup of MSNBC and NBC and CNBC. But MS Now is like catastrophically bad.
It's
I
so
thought it
close
was
to it's so close, Nathan, to Geo Media. Like it's so funny. It's just at a larger, more expensive scale to make the same stupid mistake. Like, oh shit, we need a new name. We need to, and they've like, someone's realized at the 11th hour, oh shit, we need new logos, we need a rebrand, and it's someone's written something on a napkin, and 18 hours later there's a logo and it's been committed to without anybody being like even able to say, oh, maybe this is a bad idea, or maybe we should have thought this through a bit more. It's so bad.
Yeah, just looking at the logo's terrible for one. It like, I don't know what they were going for, but it didn't work. Also, like just the branding. If you go to like, the website MS Now, it's just so ugly. It's like a blue version of the New York Post. Like it assaults you with information. It's really bad.
Yeah.
I thought it was
I
tied to MSN, not even related to NBC.
Right. That's the thing. It's like it's similar to X in that like they're gonna run a poll in a year and be like, does anyone know what MS Now is? And everyone's gonna be like,
No,
no.
of course not.
No one's gonna know what it is.
Yeah.
Ugh. This would not have been feasible, but I was talking to my former like MSNBC, NBC people, and we were like, what could they have done that would have been better? And part of me was almost like, if you go to the MS Now website at the top, it's like they have an opinion section, Morning Joe, Rachel Maddow, Deadline. I'm almost like embracing one of those types of brands and making it like the whole shell brand, because at least people know who those people are and they're familiar with those brands, versus no one knows what MS Now is, and it's just going to confuse everyone and like tank everybody's SEO, if that even matters anymore.
Yeah, right.
It probably doesn't, but I just think that like having a recognizable brand name and someone like at the top or something at the top is so crucial now, and I think this is such a bad sign.
Yeah. But yeah, it does get into that whole like that whole tension between kind of what the creator economy and what influencers have transformed media into versus what a lot of these older publications still cling to. And like on one hand, I understand the practicality of attaching like a recognizable face to things, but on the other, it does sort of get in the way of, I guess, the incentive structures of more traditional journalism, of like working together as like a team on a larger story, or no one person being the star. Instead, it's more about like, okay, let's disseminate good information. So it's like that part's tough to me. Like I do think that there's still something to be said for kind of an umbrella. And so there's a reason why like we made Aftermath as opposed to going our own separate ways and doing each individual thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. What are your feelings on that though? Especially someone who like runs your own publication that's not just like, cat Tenbarge site. It is Spitfire, like it has an actual name.
Yeah, I did I wanted to build something that had an actual name, because I do think that the end goal for most media outlets. Especially if you're doing journalism, if you're doing reporting, it's like having a bigger team is better. Like being able to bring people on and have them under like a group, as you said, like a collaborative, like editorial team is ideal. And it typically results in better journalism and better reporting when you have more minds, more people working together. So I do think that the traditional model of journalism, which is still very important and still very good, is absolutely like at odds with what works in today's like creator economy and in today's social media space, unless you have like a glimmer of a legacy brand to hold on to. But I could also see an argument of like, they should have just gone in a completely different direction and come up with a completely brand new name, especially because they're leaning into streaming and they're leading into like where people are getting their news from, which is increasingly on social media and increasingly online. So it's like you almost don't need the 5-letter broadcast symbolism that you relied on so heavily in the age of like people turning on the TV to get the news. But I feel like they kind of tried to go like a middle ground.
Right.
And that didn't work at all.
Yeah, they just landed nowhere.
They
um,
landed now.
all right. From Mectroid. Recently finished the latest issue of The Power Fantasy and felt like I needed to stare at a wall for a few minutes while I processed everything. What's the last thing that's given you that similar feeling of, and it's beachhorse.jpg, basically the horse looking at the beach going like, man, it's like, what's the last thing that made you just feel like you had to stare into the middle distance while, letting out a terrible sigh?
It was the drone footage of Beastland that he posted to Twitter, where it's like him, and then it just keeps going and going and going and going, and I'm like, oh, I need to just decompress and realize what the world has actually become.
That's so real. I think mine was I just read a really long feature in New York Magazine about like declining literacy and like math test scores
Uh-huh.
and like how bad it's gotten and how like no one wants to like accept how bad it's gotten. That was a really dark kind of conclusion to that piece.
Yeah, that reminds me of, I think it was like a tweet or something that I saw recently where somebody said that you can look at like the writing quality of what was it? Like I think the writing quality of like mass shooters and like how much worse it's gotten over the past 5 years and see a direct line in terms of the decline of literacy in the country. It's like,
That
damn.
is so true.
Yep. And
I was so
probably
related to that. Someone posted, I think last week, this feature showing that American kids haven't been learning how to read properly for the last 20 years.
Hmm.
I don't know how that happens, but
the
I just read the whole thing in complete disbelief. Like, cool, all right, that's at least 1.5 generations of people who needlessly can't read properly. That's millions and millions of people. Cool. I'm sure that'll turn out great for everybody. I'm sure the systems in place that allow that to happen were really robust and really cool. It was really, yeah. I just couldn't believe it. It was the epitome of that meme. I just had to like close the tab and just be like, man, how does that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I saw another thing the other day that was something to the effect of like, um, it was somebody talking about how like, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, so the initial tweet was somebody saying that like they were the only human at an all AI workplace, and they like got called
Yeah.
into the office for like calling someone a clanker, like using an anti-AI slur, and then the tweet quoting that one was like, people have become so insanely credulous that like they'll believe things like this, and like as time goes on they're going to get even more credulous and like believe in a bunch of other like bullshit from the distant past or like yeah, I was like, yeah, that's true. To like read that tweet and not immediately be like, this is nonsense, this never happened. Like
I
that
mean,
that would be the
something pretty close happened yesterday. There was a woman shared a post where she got on a call and she was supposed to be in like a team meeting, and all 5 other people only sent their AI transcription bots, and she was the only person in the call.
yeah,
But
now
she
see,
was still
that's
supposed to
believable
like,
though.
yeah, because she was like, man, I'm still gonna make this presentation because these people need this
Yeah,
information. But it was so utterly dystopian. Because what was worse
right.
was there wasn't even a face. It was just this poor woman's face in the middle of 6 images, and the other 5 just had the white text on a black background of whatever the transcription bot's name was. Um, So
Yeah.
like that was close, but yeah, it's
Yeah, but one of these is a fantasy. One of these is an abject
Yes.
fantasy. The idea of like, yeah, I work with only AI bots and they're smart enough to like hear me say this
Yeah.
thing and then create a meeting where like I've got to go answer for my crimes of using an anti-robot slur. Like it's so fantastical and ridiculous. And like everyone's immediate instinct should be to see that and say that didn't happen. But instead, there were people who were like, "Whoa, that's crazy." And like, just
Whereas the real
online.
story was so much worse because it involved meetings, which if it was a real story about workplace horrors, would always start and end with meetings.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
That reminds me of how like there's been this strain of discourse for a long time, which is always proven correct, which is like specifically as a woman on the internet, if you do a joke like this, where it is entirely sarcastic, if you are playing a character, if you tweet something and you're clearly not being like it's just clear sarcasm, you
Mhm.
will always have people who are like, why did you say that? And like, why do you believe that? And part of it is like people do not recognize that a woman can be telling a joke. So that's like kind of where I think a lot of that dissonance comes from. But it's almost expanded now where it's like something about
Mhm.
social media culture has made it that you don't expect anyone to be making a joke. You think everyone's trying to like get a rise out of you.
Right. AKA blue sky syndrome.
That's why I say on Twitter, where the real losers go.
Yeah. No, why spend time when at the bottom of the barrel when you can instead just be like in the toilet?
Yeah.
You got two great options. All right. From Mystic Eddie T in lighter news, I guess. What are some of your favorite memories from college or university that you've been looking for an excuse to share?
That's
Uh,
such a fun question.
I know, right? Let's bring the mood up a little bit.
Steven, what's your best Baruch College story?
Yes, I went to Baruch College. I guess I could do this one. I wanted to be a stand-up comic while I was in college. I tried very hard. I performed with many famous people. Tim Dillon used to drive me to open mics. And I remember I did one show at Baruch College I got booked at. And I grew up very Jewish, so I genuinely thought Baruch was pronounced Baruch. And I used the hard every chance I got. And when I went on stage and said, "How you doing, Baruch College?" They all hated me immediately. And I remember getting into a verbal altercation with the guy in the front row about how I could not pronounce the name of his college right. But ultimately, I ended up getting $50, so that's a great story for me.
Okay, my story is kind of similar in that I made a small amount of money after humiliating myself. So, when I was in college, my best friend and I started the ASMR channel. It was Cat Whispers ASMR, and it's still there. You can still find it, although I removed most of the videos. I started this ASMR channel because I loved ASMR and I wanted to make it. And I started making a tiny amount of money, not through like YouTube AdSense, but through commissions. And that was a really wild world, was the things that people will commission ASMR creators who have 700 YouTube subscribers to make. But one of my best friends decided that he was going to help me like up the production quality of my videos. He like knew how to edit and I did not. So he would like stand behind the camera and like direct me, and I would do my ASMR, and then he would edit it, and we would do these commissions and we would split the cash. The craziest commission that I got, and if this person is out there somewhere in the world, like wishing them the best, someone asked me to make them an ASMR video where I was turning them into a puppet. So, and they paid like, I can't remember how much we made for this video, but we split it and we each at least had like $100. So they paid at least $200 for this bespoke ASMR video of me turning them into a puppet. And recently I found the video was probably really scary because I filmed it in my college apartment's basement, which was like a condemned type of
Yeah, so it was a
situation.
Saw situation. And
Yeah,
it was sort of like,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. But I saw like in my camera roll recently, I was like
Hmm.
scrolling through and I saw the screen grab of the ASMR turning you into a puppet video and it all came flooding back.
Do you still have the full video? Like, is it still on the channel that you were talking, or was it so bespoke that you never posted it to the channel?
I never posted it to the channel publicly, but it's
Hmm.
probably still there in like an unlisted video.
If you want to get some more subscribers for your publication, you should say at X number, I will release this video.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. I should be like, once I hit X number of subscribers, I will restore the entire Cat Whispers ASMR channel.
There we go. Yes, that would be incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, you heard it here first, folks. So get on that. Go subscribe to Spitfire and to every other initiative that you possibly can of cats. Get that number up.
Thank you.
Let's see. From Mish. What game lore could you spend your whole life info dumping about and never get tired of?
Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I feel like that's where my brain went immediately too.
Yeah.
Just because there's so much there, and almost none of it is necessary, which makes it even better.
Yes. I can name all the Xehanorts. There's at least 5.
Mhm.
And it combines our love of Disney with incredibly confusing Japanese RPGs that have 3 mainline series and 9 or 10 otherwise.
Yeah.
I love that. Mine is Nancy Drew, her interactive computer games.
That's the only game Kat knows.
That's
Hell yeah. Yeah, but if you're gonna know it, you should know it well.
I
true.
know
She
it
is an
so
expert.
well.
Wait, Luke, do you have one? Do you have a lore?
Zelda. Yeah, it's Zelda. Because you can because it's also unrelated. You can just say anything, and it's true at some point for some game on some kind of alternate timeline.
Well, yeah, I saw yesterday that somebody was talking about how like the timeline works, and that Breath of the Wild I think is supposed to be the end of the timeline. But they say specifically, but for any game. So they're like any of the timelines that can be the end. Like, but wait, how does that work? They're like, it doesn't matter. Don't think about it. Which is
the chart.
perfect.
It's very confusing.
Well, it's worse that some of them are directly related to each other, and then some of them aren't. So it's like, and then you'd have to explain that. So it's best to just keep it completely chaotic and just be like, just random facts or some fundamental pillar of Zelda. And then, but what about this game? It's different. Then we can talk about that another day.
Yeah.
Gotta be Zelda.
Yeah, I like that approach because it also like it eludes the idea of like a canon lore, which there's so many like YouTube channels dedicated to trying to unpack and be like, yeah, this is correct. This is the exact like way that these things played out. And I find all of that tiresome. Like the point
Zelda,
is not
you
the
can
lore
just
itself. The point is the story you tell within that framework. And like if you're just hyper fixating on like lore, then I think that you're just having like a bad time.
Plus, I can also then just like hand off my version of the lore to someone else and be like, "That's what happened." Wind Waker, that's canon. Everything else is just, make believe. You want to play the only real Zelda game? It's Wind Waker.
I mean, I also really respect
too.
Zelda for having one game be entirely a dream. Like that rules. That's the way to do it. All right, let's see. From Drew. Do you have a cherished food you would bake / cook with your family growing up? I guess it is almost Thanksgiving, so there we go. Thanksgiving question for you.
My mom was not the best cook growing up. I learned later that she doesn't have a sense of smell, which it's a kind of key thing. But she made this potato kugel, which is basically just like ground up potato and egg. But I still love it to this day. And no other kugel I've had quite matches my mother's smellless kugel.
I love that. I think like my family similarly like does not have any enormous cooking talents, and this was extra proven. This past weekend I went to a Friendsgiving and I made a green bean casserole that my aunt always makes for family gatherings, and I was like, this is so sweet. It's my Aunt Laura's green bean casserole. And then everyone was like, Kat, why are these green beans like so hard? Like they're like basically raw. And I was like, that's how we make it. And then I like it. I think it's good. And then I called my grandparents like a few days later and I was like, I made the green bean casserole. And my grandpa was like, did your friends have to go to the hospital after they ate?
At least they're self-aware.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that my mom's cooking was very sophisticated. She made like a chili and a spaghetti dish, and then I think my personal favorite, based on how often I would request it, even though like this is not cooking, it's just old El Paso tacos. You know, you buy the little like this is peak white people. But you buy the little like package deal where it comes with like the taco shells and the like seasoning and everything else, and you just follow the instructions, and you have what were, to my mind as a child, the best existent tacos. Come to find out, of course, that there's a whole world of tacos out there now that I'm an adult. But back then I was like, yeah, I just want that. Just make that over and over and over.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Took
Wait, where
no
did you
To go
grow
effort.
4 from
up?
4.
Wait, what'd you say, Luke?
I was gonna say to go 4 from 4. My parents couldn't cook for shit either. But when I was a teenager, I played so much sport that I was like just a bottomless. Like I just would not stop eating from the ages of like 13 to 19, and my parents couldn't cook that much like proper food to feed me, and so my mum would cook this pasta dish where she would just buy like $1 packet of pasta and just put like some bacon, some onion, and like Heinz tomato soup concentrate in a giant pot and just stir it up and give it to me, and I'd be like, yes, this is what I would eat, like I would eat kilos of that over the course of a week. And it sounds disgusting, right? But I started to develop a real fondness for it because it was like it was the food I could eat to like fill me up, and it was great. And so I had my own kids, and I made it once. I was like, oh, I'm going to make my mom's pasta. And they all took one bite, and they were like, this is the
They're like,
worst
absolutely
fucking
not.
thing you've ever cooked. And so I've had to like retool. And now I cook the pasta I cook for my kids is like, I slow cook it with stock and wine and everything. Like it's a, you know, I spent like an hour and a half cooking. It's amazing. And I'm like, I was happy just with a tin of tomato soup on a stovetop.
Now that's a
yeah,
back in
but
my day story. Back in my day,
wow,
we just
yeah,
had it on a, yeah, it was just
I think
tomato
that
soup on a
sounds so
stovetop.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
it is. I think it is. I think it's really
Sounds
good.
so
Like that,
good.
you know, the concentrate soup that you have to add. Like you
Yes.
can't just drink that soup
Yeah.
normally. You
Yep.
have to
Yep.
put like milk or water with it. No, my mum would just like in the pot because it was thick. It'd be like a pasta sauce. And
And also,
like, it was,
concentrate means more flavor, means better. I
Yeah.
think that
does
I'm correct
exactly.
here. Yep.
Yep,
Science.
Exactly.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm. All right. Also from Drew, inspired by the current debate in Films with TV, which is one of the Discord channels. Which again, you can join our Discord for a mere $10 if you just subscribe to the site, or you can do the other tier for $1 right now, which is a crazy deal. You should take advantage of that. You're welcome. Anyway, what's your favorite video game movie?
Is that a movie based on a video game?
Yeah.
Or okay.
Detective
I
Pikachu.
Yeah, honestly, good pick. One of
Yeah.
the
Thank you.
few like actual good ones. Let's see. Recency
does it have to be
bias,
about a
but
game, or can it be like a movie about video games?
I think that's fine too.
Yeah, I like Summer Wars, the anime, where every from like 2010 ish, I think, where
Mhm.
everybody lives in this future world where the entire internet plays like an MMO.
Mhm.
Um,
Ooh.
and it's a I don't remember what happens in it, to be honest. I've only seen it the one time, but it's just an extremely cool movie about like what a really nice internet could have looked like,
Mhm.
where like your banking and your shopping and everything was just like you all got an avatar and you all did all that stuff in this one world, kind of like PlayStation Home or somewhere if it
Rip.
had actually worked. And they just have like there's real world stuff happening, but they just have adventures in this MMO space. Like it's just a really cool movie about like two kids, you know, hanging out in the summer and stuff. It's one of my favorite anime, but it is probably also my favorite video game related movie as well.
Mhm.
I love
I don't
that.
know if this counts, but I love King of Kong, that
Oh yeah.
documentary
Yeah.
about Donkey Kong and Billy Mitchell's a villain,
Mhm.
and he is in real life.
Yeah.
So
As
it
it
all
turns
works
out.
out.
Yeah.
I think he was actually the first person I ever interviewed was Billy Mitchell and the guy who ran Twin Galaxies.
Huh.
Yeah, I still have
Wow.
this massive amount of Twin Galaxy cards that he sent me of like all of the people who had high scores. So if anyone wants a premium Billy Mitchell MVP card, I'm your guy.
It'd be very funny if I said indie game the movie, just given how much discourse that game has sparked over the years. Um, I don't know. Let's see. What is a good video game movie? I mean, recency bias says the new Sonic movie, but even I know that's not true because that's not the best of the Sonic movies. Best one is the first one. Keeps the stakes relatively low, smaller scale, um, just more fun. Whereas the third one is too fixated on being a Marvel movie. I don't know, probably something like that. All right, from Lexi. Hottest take on games with publishers like Expedition 33 being nominated for Best Indie Game for the Game Awards. I mean, hottest possible take is that the Game Awards don't matter. It's not a real award show. It's all a giant commercial. Who cares? Yeah.
Yeah,
I couldn't
I've
give a
felt
shit who
that
they
way.
nominate.
Yeah, I just don't care about them anymore. It's always
Yeah.
been
Yep.
just a way to get as many ads and spend as much money by these companies as possible. Though it is the only time I get to see the Muppets these days. Uh, so that's the
Yeah.
win for the Game Awards.
Let the Muppets rest, honestly. Let them just retire.
Never, never. I want to see them survive. I want to see them thrive. That will be one of our podcast episodes.
Oh, yeah. All right. Lastly, from PJ stands for Paper Jam. Kat, who are some female internet culture reporters that you'd recommend? Parentheses, lesser known than Taylor Lorenz.
Ooh.
Which,
That
you
is a
know,
really good
it's probably most
question.
of them.
Well, I'm biased because I have so many friends in this space, but the first person is Kelsey Weekman, who is currently at Yahoo, and she also has a newsletter about like Gen Z internet culture. Who else? So my former coworker Deja Tolentino also recently started a newsletter called Yap Year, amazing internet culture reporter. And I have a lot. There are so many people, but I will do one more person. Me and Steven's former coworker, Palmer Hash, also has done gravitated more into like entertainment reporting, but also still does good internet culture reporting too.
Hell yeah. Also, if we want to shout out somebody that we've had on the show before, I mean, Morgan Sung, who is great
Yes.
and is a friend of mine. Also, someone I think he used to work with Calhan, however you say her name out
Yes.
loud. Yeah.
Yes. Callan
Yeah,
knows as
she's
well.
cool.
Yeah.
And a fellow Coheed and Cambria fan. But yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of people out there. There are a lot of good people out there covering the space, which is impressive considering how many layoffs there have been and how much it sort of feels like we went from this moment where publications were all in on covering internet culture and hired a bunch of people to being like, never mind. And in fact, let's convert them all to like AI reporters or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we were
Yeah.
at Business Insider as the last digital culture team. That was the 1 year we got to publish as much and did so much impactful reporting. And now it's gone, as are most digital culture teams out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sad.
But I mean, again, it's, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I don't even know what I was gonna say.
But we're gonna
Yeah.
do it. We're
Yeah.
keeping it
Well,
alive.
exactly. Like a lot of these people have gone independent, you know, seek them out. And if you have the money, give some to them because that's how they stay alive. With that said, I think that's the end of our show. And speaking of giving people money, you could do that to us too if you really wanted to. We are subscription driven. And so if you go to the site, you can subscribe there. You know, if you enjoyed what you heard. If not, don't give us any money. I don't know. That's your call. Anyway, this has been Aftermath Hours, the weekly podcast of aftermath.site. We record this every Thursday at 4 p.m. ET live on Twitch. And we'll be back to do it again, not next week because of Thanksgiving, but the week after. Until then, oh, wait, I almost wrapped up without saying the thing. Where can people find the two of you?
All right, well, you can find me at spitfirenews.com is my newsletter, and then I'm also mainly on Blue Sky and Instagram, both at Cat Tenbarge.
I'm a Twitter troll who still freelances. I am Asarch, Asarch, and you should subscribe to our new YouTube channel, which I believe the URL right now is Fantasyland Pod 516, which we will hopefully get fixed before people start to notice.
But in case you wanted to know, May 16th was the day that the Muppets ride opened.
Oh, that's where the number came from. Okay,
Yep.
gotcha.
Yes. It also happens to be the area code I had growing up, but I don't think that was intentional.
That's crazy. So of significance to both of you, you got to keep the number now. You can't just get rid of that. It's too fortuitous.
No. Yeah, it kind of
Yeah.
is.
All right. Anyway, all that stuff that I said before, just pretend that I'm saying it now. Anyway, have a good one, folks. Later.